Well, I was tempted to show up today in all braids just because I'm watching the braid debate going on in one of the communities, and it's actually pretty funny. Braids are a really cool way to restrain when you have disruptive hair that gets into everything, but I decided against it. Instead, I want to talk about divorce, the big D word that evangelicals claim they hate, but actually do in far greater numbers than everyone else. Okay, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Meyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering for Pathos. It was about fundamentalist come evangelical quiverful and other entities involving evangelical the evangelical world. I'm in the process of doing edits on my book with Strange Fire that will be coming out soon. It'll be about my roughly 17 years as hey T King in that particular world. Good evening from Norway. Well, good day from Costa Rica. Good morning, I should say, because it's still morning here. These are just my opinions. Don't bully anybody I'm going to talk about today. Don't even be rude to each other in the comments. It's just not done. One of the things I'm learning about myself is that some of the things that I always thought is bedrock that people would do are now being called to question. One of the big ones is no fault divorce. You may not have ever heard of Stephen Crowder. In fact, I was very confused about who he was for a long time because I don't follow the kind of hyper masculinity Christian nationalism movement. I don't follow that anymore. Hey, Great Dane Mom. And the only Stephen Crowder I knew ran the Stephen Crowder band. And so I thought, well, maybe he's that same guy that plays Christian music. Nope. This guy is one of the many that's come out of YouTube because he can't get a show elsewhere. He talks big trash. Yesterday, he was talking big trash about, of all things, Down syndrome Barbie. Every now and then, Barbie will release a new Barbie that addresses some problem, like sickle cell Barbie. There was Barbie in a wheelchair. I don't have a problem with that because I think it's important. It's very important for our kids to see representations of the stuff they deal with. And that's why I think that sickle cell Barbie and others are perfectly fine. I know how horrible it is as a kid to not find any Barbie that represents you. As you can tell, I'm kind of not pale skin. So to not see a black-haired Barbie with olive-toned skin meant that I wasn't represented as a kid. Barbie in those days was a haunty blonde. She wasn't the smiling person that she is now, the smiling blonde with blue eyes. She was the blonde with blue eyes that had a too cool for you vibe. So he's been ranting about this and he's been saying horrible things. He tried to link sickle cell with interracial mixing, and there was another thing he did. But anyway, he was trying to mesh all this up so that he could rant about race mixing, diseases that only happen to black people, and other just really racist stuff. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Do you talk about Tim from the New Evangelicals? No, I do not. I have not researched him enough to form an opinion. This guy just popped up on my radar screen because I don't watch these guys. But I will be looking for Tim because that sounds, I have a feeling it's bad. Probably right up there with Tim Bailey, who is the epitome of bad Tims as far as I'm concerned. Write that down because I will forget. If I write myself a note, I won't forget. Tim, New Evangelicals. I don't know, but I've been watching a pile of really bad behaviors going on in the evangelical world lately. is critical to the things you talk about. Oh, I'm going to have to look him up then. So that's one benefit for being older than dirt, is the fact that I can remember history. I can remember things that went before. When I was a kid, a divorce, there was no such thing as no fault divorces. Everybody who had to get a divorce, somebody had to cheat. Somebody else had to get all kinds of different evidence. And there weren't very many reasons that you could get a divorce. Infidelity was one of the few. And believe it or not, physical abuse was not one of them. That all changed in the 70s when no default divorce started rolling out. And I thought that's a really good thing, because I knew in my childhood various ladies that should have divorced their husbands were not able to, because there was no such thing as no fault divorce, and none of the categories fit well. So many times, still to this day, the church tells you have to forgive, you have to go back. And sometimes it is so kind of over the top annoying when you look at this stuff and going, holy cow, are you telling women to stay and to experience the abuse? He was kicked out of the church because he was critical towards evangelical churches. Oh, I do need to look him up. And the no fault divorce, I remember when my parents got divorced. I was 12 and there was no fault divorce at the time. And it was a bit contentious, ugly divorce. I'm just going to throw that out there. My parents didn't get along. They never got along. It was sort of an arranged marriage where they're from, in their little bayou town in South Louisiana. And it never worked. My mother never loved my father. I think my father did love my mother, and it was just bad all the way around. I am thankful that Louisiana has no fault divorce. I would have been injured had I filed for a real reason. Great day, Mom. I'm getting ready to get to that. So would I. So the dance before all that, all before no fault divorce, is that you had to have these reasons. And if you had to have these reasons and you were bringing evidence, it could get really ugly in a hurry. Not only that, it wouldn't be physically safe for women who had been victims of domestic violence. Sometimes their abusers would chase them down and unalive them. I mean, this was back in the dark ages, I call it. So when I started seeing that all these evangelicals were coming out against no fault divorce, I was like, are you kidding me? If you look at the statistics, the evangelical world actually has a much higher divorce rate than regular old heathen world. They do. And I saw that in my old church. I saw there was more infidelity, there was more divorce, there was more SA going on, there was a lot more just garden variety domestic abuse going on. And most of the time, people were pressured to stay together and told, you can't do that. God says, if you marry, you must stay married. No. Before they had no fault divorces, the kids would hear all of the trash that was being said. And I know I certainly did, even though my parents were both mutually agreeing that there should be a divorce, there was still a lot of drama that went down. I'm sorry, I dropped my remote from my AC. This is the most essential of things to have here in Costa Rica. A strong air conditioner unit in each room that you can switch on and off as you're going through the rooms. And so I don't remember the exact details of who accused who of what. There had been infidelity on both sides, going way back. I only knew about it because of divorce, because I got drugged to the divorce court and talked to about who I wanted to go live with. And that is just not a very fair push me, pull you that my parents pulled on me, telling me. And the thing is, the divorce was actually a relief for me because there was so much tension in the household all the time. And to the point where they would wake me up in the middle of the night and say, we're getting divorced. Who are you going to live with now? Pick now. It's like, it's 3 in the morning. I'm crying. I'm 10 years old, 8 years old, 6 years old. Don't put me on the spot like that. That's child cruelty as far as I'm concerned. And they would routinely do this nonsense. And it was horrible because I wanted to live with my father and I wanted to live with my mother. My father kept promising me a horse if I moved in with him. My mother didn't promise me a horse, but she would push a lot of guilt buttons. So that was divorce before that, and my parents wanted a divorce. Once no fault divorce happened, and I've told you about my ex is not a very nice guy. I'm not going to name him. He's still around. He still does his things that he does. He's a lot older than me, was a bit older than me. And he was rather manipulative because of, it was unfair, but it's water under the bridge now. In fact, I got to tell you another crazy divorce story. My parents decided to get divorced, and they took me to Disney World in Orlando, Florida, which I'd been begging for ages to go to. They took me to that. They were lavish. They let me have whatever I wanted. They took me to that. They were lavish. They let me have whatever I want on that trip. They let me eat where I want, the whole 9 yards. It was like they were treating me just like you would treat a pet if you knew that you were going to put the pet down. On the drive back, they told me they were getting divorced and they wanted to take me out for one nice last vacation. And I was blown away. I knew they didn't get along. They'd been fighting for as long as I could remember, like that. But I never thought they would actually divorce. And like I said, there was infidelity and all kinds of things that happened as a result of them not loving each other. And they were totally different people. My mother, you would think, is the grand dame. She's the Southern belle. My father and I are more alike. I hate to almost admit that because he could lose his mind about stupid stuff too, but I can't too. I was just ranting this morning because Costa Rica wants to start putting a tracking chip in our Marchamo stickers. And I don't think that's a good idea for a lot of reasons. So I was ranting about that this morning. So I don't think that's a good idea for a lot of reasons. So I was ranting about that this morning. So the divorce happened. It was good in some ways because I was no longer living in a tense household where the parents fighting left and right and dragging me in the center of it. So there we go. Fast forward, not a whole lot years later, I foolishly ran off to Mississippi and got married. Yay me. At far too young of an age to a guy I barely knew who was a lot older than me. And it didn't work. There was some abuse involved. There was a whole lot of neglect and a whole lot of things that went down that were just really, really bad. The last time he got fallen down drunk, and when he got fallen down drunk, he'd be flailing fists and things. So I would end up bruised up and all of that while he was drinking. Do you know, because of no fault divorce, that when he disappeared into the ether, wherever he went for like a year and a half, I was able to petition the courts and divorce him without having to state a reason, without having to prove that he was abusing me. Just show up and ask for my divorce, say, hey, I've been separated from him this many months. The marriage is irretrievably broken. Here's my divorce. I wasn't married very long to him by any length of time. And still to this day, I'm one of these people where if you can work it out, great. But there are certain situations that you shouldn't even attempt to work out. And one of them is abuse, whether it's financial abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, whatever it is. If there's an abuse factor involved, you're better off ending the marriage, breathing in, breathing out, move on, as I like to say. And That's not to say that marriage counseling doesn't work and that you can't forgive people for various things, because clearly you can. And sometimes people manage to make it out and change enough so that the marriage works. This was never going to happen with us. And he's been married multiple times since me. So there's that. And I was glad because I didn't have to confront him. And because he disappeared, he had no idea we were divorcing, and we could not find him to serve him to say, hey, you're getting a divorce. And I was glad with that, because I could have just imagined he would have shown up on my doorstep full of alcohol and rage and done some pretty bad things. But because of the way it was handled, I was able to avoid that, which is a good thing. And this is the thing that evangelicals want to take away from everyone, the ability to do this when you're being abused. In my filing, it was worded that I was praying for my divorce to be granted. In this case, it meant I was asking, truthfully, I was praying, Great Dane Mom, I shed a number of tears and said prayers myself over mine. Even though I wasn't religious at all in those days, I was more of an atheist back then, I still was questioning whether I was doing the right thing, even though there was abuse inherent in my first marriage. And I stayed single quite a long time before I remarried. And I've been married to my husband now 36 years. And it's all good. It is all good. So I can't complain. He's never raised a hand to me. Before I married him, I laid out all the stuff that was an automatic deal breaker. And it's useful to have a framework that everyone knows what's going on and what will happen if a line is crossed. Now, I know people are able to forgive the worst kind of infidelity, and I just don't understand it. The other day, I was watching a movie based on a book that I really love. It was called Above Suspicion. And the movie was pretty dreadful in the fact that there was no chemistry between the two leads. And it used some choices that I didn't really approve of. Great Day Mom, thank you. I'm glad that I was able to get over that, because that almost crashed my life, my early liaison with somebody totally unsuitable for me. And the thing was, it was about an FBI agent, true story, an FBI agent that slept with an informer and killed the informer later. And finally, he had confessed to the murder years down the pike. But I couldn't get over in the movie or the book his wife knowing about this, knowing this was going on, and being okay with it. Well, maybe not okay, but not being a deal breaker for her. And in the book, you saw, and in the movie, that the wife had some issues of her own. They were involved with a local church. And I'm sure they were telling her, forgive what your husband's done. Stay with him. Again, there are always going to be deal breakers. And if you're married to somebody who thinks nothing about crossing your boundaries, that's not a good thing. And to hear Stephen Crowder say it, he says he doesn't understand why his wife divorced him. Well, it could be these reasons. There are actually a lot of reasons. Okay, so his wife took a vow until they got married. And her asking him for a divorce was supposedly a huge shock. They had they had twins. They had 2 children. And he's claiming that he had been with a proverbial boot on his neck all those years. And he talked about the divorce, and he still to this day not understand the why behind it. And I would say they were married all those years. If a woman suddenly divorces you out of the blue like that when you have brand new babies, there's something pretty strange going on. And see, just what I've known in my life about these evangelical marriages, that it was very likely that he was overbearing or was insufferable, intolerable. I've gone and watched a couple episodes of his show now, and he seems like a pretty insufferable, intolerable dude. And he would probably make your life hell. The kind that would wake you up at 11:30 at night if you fall exhausted the bed with twin babies to tell you you didn't wipe down the cabinets right enough. He just strikes me as that kind of a way. Somebody who is that unhinged and over the top on their show is going to be more unhinged and over the top in real life. At least that's the takeaway I got. And he's not the only one. I've been watching all of these evangelical commentators rush to defend his come up with a real thing. I was looking at British tabloids talking about this because there are people like Alice Beth Stuckey talking about it. You know, I'm not a real fan of hers. She tends to take some really awful positions on a number of things. There are others. There was Lori Alexander chiming in. And these are the kind of women that I would not listen to at all because, like Deborah would say, if your husband was cheating, welcome him back with open arms. Nope, you don't have to do that. She said stuff like, if your husband was essaying your own children, you call the law and turn your husband in. You testify against him if you have to. You raise your children, but you take them to visit their daddy in jail, even the ones that he essayed. You make sure that he's a part of their life. You don't divorce him while he's there. You just wait for him, and then when he comes out, you place your kids with somebody else, and you welcome him back with open arms. You're right. That's BS. That's ridiculous BS. And this is the same kind of ridiculous BS that all of these people are pushing. They want to remove no fault divorce. And I understand that's something that is actually in the on the radar of the Supreme Court and other courts, is overturning no fault divorce, closing the loophole that allows women who are being abused to get away from their abusers, that allows a divorce without having to spill out and shout out all the dirty laundry. And I am all for that. But they still want to stop that, just like they want to do away with any and all birth control. They want to do away with any outlet for a woman to get away if she's being abused. They want to end all of that. And they say the problem is feminism. Feminism does not cause men to beat women. It does not cause men to control the money till the point where they're unable to sustain their family on the funds. It doesn't cause men to do any of the things that a lot of times women will divorce their husbands for. I forgave for my own peace. I won't forget. That doesn't mean I would have taken him back. I hear you. That's exactly right. I think I've worked on forgiveness with him. I can't say that I'm 100% there because there have been some recent shenanigans dealing with our daughter that I am not real happy with him about. And it's going to take a whole lot to make that forgiveness come around. He's been pretty awful about a number of things to do with my daughter. So, but she's grown. It's her own business what she does and how she handles everything. So I still can't believe that they want to haul that away. And they want to add covenant marriage everywhere. Covenant marriage. And covenant marriage makes it much harder to get a divorce. If that's really what you want, fine, go for it. I'm not going to stop you from making foolish decisions, but all I can say is I think that is definitely a foolish thing. To get married to somebody to the point where you cannot divorce them unless you jump through 50 trillion hoops. That also doesn't protect women who are being abused. And like I said, keep in mind, this is the group that has the highest number of divorces. Anytime you have a fundamentalist religion, and I'm not just talking about Christianity, I'm talking about, you name it, you name the religion, and anytime there is a fundamentalist slant to it, there's going to be these problems, and men are going to abuse women. Yesterday, I had somebody commenting on one of my videos, trying to point me to Islam, and I was kind of like, nope. I have lots of friends that are Muslim, and that's good for them, and there are good Muslims just like there are good and bad Christians. But I am so not interested in ever joining a religion that treats women the way that many Muslim men think it's perfectly fine to treat women. A friend of mine had one. It was the second biggest mistake of his life. His first was marrying her. Oh, Great Dane, Mom, I can't imagine. I know people who've done it and lived to regret it. Live to regret it. You know, going into marriage counseling, working on your marriage, those are all worthy things, regardless of what's going on in your marriage. Except there are some circumstances where you're just better off getting the heck away from Dodge and then figuring it out later whether or not you want a divorce. His divorce was hell on earth. Yep, there are some of them that are like that. I'm watching some of my friends doing that too. And I was like, I don't want to say I told you so, but it's pretty crazy, some of the things that people will put you through. I was watching Michelle Goes Live last night, and she was ranting about how she's going to screw her ex Etienne out of any profits on that property. And she was floating a bunch of ideas that I don't think that she has a snowball's chance and HE double hockey sticks of actually pulling off. And it's kind of bad because I'm watching this and I'm thinking, ooh, Etienne, she is about to screw you, making much of a profit on this thing. One of the pages I follow on Reddit is the Zillow Gone Wild. Why? Because I love looking at houses, even the weird ones, especially the weird ones. What can I say? And there's some really weird ones that have popped up that I've gone, and then there's some I've looked at and said, I could make that work. I could make that work easy, just a few little changes, and there you go. Every now and then on the Zillow Goes Wild, there's a house listed where it says on there, photos of the inside unavailable, and that you buy the house sight unseen. Okay. And that's because there's always a hostile person in the house, either a renter or a hostile ex-spouse, something like that. And here's my prediction. I'm just going to make this one too. This is going to be one of those houses where you're not allowed to see the inside, where they can't show you anything. They just show you the yard and the outside and say, here's the floor plan. No one can go inside to inspect the home until after sales. So I think that's what we're going to see there. But that is a really good example of what happens when one person tries to drag their feet on a no-fault divorce and they can't. These things happen. And property should have been ironed out ages ago. Apparently it wasn't. I think he will sell it low to get away from her. I think so too. I think that's going to be his only option. He's going to have to list it as, hostile squatter inside, so you can't see the inside until you actually buy the house. And I'm predicting he may even sell it at a loss. And if he does that, he's going to screw her on making penny one. That's my prediction. I saw this pretty hard with a family member that got divorced, about 6 years ago. And they also sold their house at a bargain basement price just to be able to get out of there. And it was cool. They actually ended up making a decent amount of money off it, but the other spouse did not because he was so far in debt to so many various people that all the profit from the house on his side went to satisfy his debts, which is really unfortunate. So that's another thing that when they had divorces, no fault or faulty, that things can get really screwed up when you try to start dividing everything up. Like I said, I am dealing with this with my mother, and I can see that we're going to have a battle on our hands. And one of the things that's going to be the biggest battle is the house. And I have a feeling I'm going to have to end up going there and remodeling the house, having it remodeled, and then selling it for top dollar because it's in a good neighborhood. But an elderly mother has not kept up on anything, and it just needs some reworking. So that's another one of those just crazy things that can happen. And it's going to be hard to navigate settling the will when she passes because she was remarried. Some of the things that she inherited are supposed to go to the other family. I just don't know. I just know that when it happens, I'm going to err on the side of caution. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm supposed to get that doll over there," I'm likely to give it to them because I just don't want to hassle with any of that. Bring in one of those estate liquidators, have them sell everything, pocket the money, and move on. Way kinder than fighting over everything. The only thing I ever wanted was their dining room set, and now I have no place to put it. I guess I don't need it. But here's the thing, I'm going to start watching all these people that are decrying no fault divorce and see how many of them end up divorced here eventually. Because that's one thing I have seen again and again and again with evangelicals is the ones that decry divorce the loudest are usually the ones that end up divorced. What do I know? Okay, you guys, I am going to go ahead and go. Thank you for watching. If you could do the YouTube things out the door, that would be awesome. And please don't proselytize me from other religions because I am not open to that at all. I've done some reading on Islam and I won't be joining. Let's put it that way. Love you guys.